From the City of Angels off the Pacific Ocean, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie, and let's take a ride and go coast to coast. AM. Open lines later tonight. Yep, those Friday into Saturday morning open lines. I'll open up a special hotline. I'll tell you all about that later on. Well, those who are living around San Francisco had a little jolt this morning. A light earthquake. Breaking glass, jarring nerves, no injuries, thank God, reported. The 4.2 magnitude earthquake struck about 4:40 in the morning, about 2 miles east of Oakland, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The tremor was felt on both sides of the San Francisco Bay. Lasted up to 10 seconds. Residents east of San Francisco were shaken awake as pictures slipped from walls and objects, and some businesses delayed opening because of broken windows. Power out to about 1,000 customers. I still continue to get emails from people who claim to be psychic who think that the big one is coming in the Southern California area. I hope they're wrong. Well, federal investigators are kind of scratching their heads tonight, examining what appears to be an inoperative military rocket launcher, a tube, found Friday morning on the front lawn of a Jersey City home that sits directly in the flight path of the busy Newark Liberty International Airport. Jersey City police removed the tube, and the incident is now being investigated, of course, by the Joint Terrorism Task Force and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. There was no evidence of any explosive device discovered at the scene. And a Patriot surface-to-air missile has been found in a Florida scrapyard. Workers at the yard in Tampa called police to say they found a torpedo. Experts were drafted in from the nearby MacDill Air Force Base, who quickly identified the object as a Patriot. They said it was harmless, it was missing its warhead. President Bush has signed an executive order prohibiting cruel treatment, including humiliation or degradation of the religious beliefs and the detention and interrogation of terrorism suspects. The White House declined to say whether the CIA currently has a detention and interrogation program, but said if it did, it must adhere to the guidelines outlined in the executive order. The order targets captured al-Qaeda terrorists who have information on attack plans or the whereabouts of the group's senior leaders. President Bush will undergo a routine colonoscopy Saturday and temporarily will hand presidential powers over to Vice President Dick Cheney. Mr. Bush will have the procedure done at his Camp David, Maryland retreat. Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin, and 3 of its executives have been ordered to pay a $634.5 million fine for misleading the public about the painkiller's risk of addiction. A U.S. district judge levied the fine, saying that, well, they should have been able to tell people about this. The hearing included statements by numerous people who said their lives were changed forever by the addiction to this drug. On July 20th, 1969, the human race accomplished its single greatest technological achievement of all time when a human first set foot on another celestial body.
Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Ah, yes, the voice of Neil Armstrong. I was 19 years old when I saw that, heard that. I'll never forget it. I had a great opportunity to meet Buzz Aldrin during our Larry King interview last week. That was quite a thing. And several months ago, I had an opportunity to interview Buzz Aldrin here on Coast to Coast. And we just talked with him about some of the events on the moon landing, what he had to do to help get that lunar module back up. You have to play with a pen. That's right, a writing pen in order to kind of circuit something to get it going. Well, here's our discussion with Buzz. Buzz, it is a delight having you on the program, sir. How are you?
I'm very fine here in the southern coast of France and Saint-Tropez. It's just beautiful here.
I had heard that you got the name Buzz because your sister couldn't pronounce brother when you were a kid. Is that true?
That's that's the way I understand it. That's the way they keep telling it to me. Yeah,
And then you legally changed your name to Buzz, right?
that's correct. I guess maybe 20 years ago, probably. But it takes time to catch up to all you journalists.
Buzz, I've got to ask you, whenever you look up at a full moon, do you sometimes pinch yourself and say, I was there? I mean, what's the feeling like?
Well, I guess I coined the phrase afterward that before we went there, it was a stranger, but it's a friend now. That's kind of it's manufactured after the fact, and that really doesn't mean a whole lot. It's not too habitable a spot either. It's going to be difficult for people to go and live there for a long period of time. And I understand all these technical things about it, but I guess I'm still enthused whenever I look up there and realize that, by golly, I have actually been to that place. Now, it's not as clear as it used to be. I have a little astigmatism. But, we all have to live with growing a little bit older and having a few aches and pains and popping a few more pills than maybe we used to. But it's really amazing that there's still 18 of us still alive of the 24 people who reached the moon in support of those 6 landings.
And all heroes. When you were on the moon with Neil, and you two were bouncing around there, I mean, it had to have been such an incredible feeling. You're looking at planet Earth. You're on the moon, desolate. I mean, what kind of a feeling was there, Buzz?
Well, you got one of the 2 words. I just put 2 words together that seem to describe the event to me: magnificent desolation. And Tom Hanks has used those words now in his latest 3D IMAX portrayal of the 6 missions that went to the moon, and what the guys did. And he put it in a perspective of young kids kind of asking a few questions and being asked questions and coming up with childlike answers. And then right near the end, one of those girls who was asked questions turns out to be the base commander of a rather extensive base on the moon. Now, that's, I think, really a wonderful setting for an outstanding portrayal of the achievements of getting there on the moon. I just feel that that's outstanding. I'm not sure that it reflects the reality of an expanding human base. My vote would be that we would have an expanding colony on the surface of Mars for a number of reasons. It's much more habitable there. The resources that are there at Mars are much more capable of supporting sustained human activities. It takes a long time to get to Mars, and you need to gradually build up. You can't bring everybody back on a return trip, so other people have to stay there. I just vote for a growing habitation on Mars, and I think we really have to commit to that before we start spending a lot of money directed toward specifically Mars. I think we're doing the absolute right thing now in setting our objectives, as Kennedy did back in 1961. Really, it was the first time he said we're going to go to the moon. That was May 25th. Yuri Gagarin had flown once around the Earth,
right,
and Alan Shepard had gone up and down, just 15 minutes in flight. So to look back on those historic times is really quite a privilege for all of us. 12 walked on the moon, and 9 of us are still alive. And I'm trying to bring those people together in in Apollo lunar ambassador reunions.
Oh, that would be a great reunion. I've got to tell you, are you disappointed that we stopped going to the moon and the program just seemed to end?
Well, my participation in it ended. All three of us, Neil, Mike, and I, decided that being so privileged to be on that first landing that we just would forego the opportunity to stay in the crew rotation cycle, and we'd move on to other things. And we all did that so that other people could have their chance to get to the moon. Neil went into aeronautics at NASA headquarters. Mike worked for the State Department for a while. I had hoped that my return to the Air Force, the first astronaut to do so, would be as an assignment commandant of cadets at the Air Force Academy. That's kind of an assignment that would allow me to ease back into the service after being away for 11 years out of 20 years. But that wasn't to be. They asked me to command the test pilot school, which was unusual because not only had I been away from the service for a good while, but I'd never had any test pilot training. I eased my way into the astronaut program by the academic achievements at MIT.
Buzz, I was reading in a documentary that you're going to be in that it was pretty touch and go trying to take off from the surface of the moon. There was some kind of broken circuit breaker, and you had to use a pen in order to really punch it and ignite the LEM. Is that what happened?
Well, we have rows and rows of circuit breakers, and we use them to protect a circuit from being electrified early when it wasn't really needed. So we sort of have a double protection. Most aircraft do that. If we're not using something, let's say you're flying cross-country in a fighter airplane and you're not going to be using the guns or rockets, you pull the circuit breakers on that so that just in case, something might jam or might fire if you happen to have ammunition aboard. So a lot of circuit breakers were pulled, and evidently when Neil and I got back in again and then sort of moving around to take those backpacks off in confined quarters so that we could depressurize again and toss those overboard to save weight for liftoff. We really put all of those kind of things into the flight plan to give us that extra assurance that we'd have enough fuel to more than get in back into orbit. Evidently, in doing that, I had knocked up against some of the circuit breakers because when we finally got ready to try and sleep, I chose the most likely spot, got my firsties in there, and that was to lie down on the floor. But as I got ready to do that, I noticed that amongst some of the lunar dust on the floor, on the edge, was a broken off circuit breaker.
Oh no!
The top of it. So I thought, well, this might be the lighting circuit breaker or something else. But I looked up there, and it was the engine arm circuit breaker.
Oh, no.
So we reported that to Houston, and then those guys were up for the next 6 hours trying to figure out how to get around that circuit. If in some eventuality, when the time came to arm that circuit, that it didn't stay armed or something like that. So they finally concluded that instead of waiting until 5 minutes before liftoff to push it in, we'd do that about 2 or 3 hours after we got up, which is what we did. And of course, not wanting to maybe apply any metal to that, why I chose a pen that we were using that had a felt tip on it, so that it wouldn't
short out.
And when I pushed it in, of course, it stayed in, so I didn't have to act like the little Dutch boy and hold my finger
while you were leaving the moon. And that's Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, of course. Got out of the LEM right after Neil Armstrong plopped down. They piled up 46 pounds of lunar rocks, put it back in, and they took off, and he just told you how they were able to. And let's not forget the command module captain of Columbia, Michael Collins, who was patiently orbiting all around the lifeless moon, waiting for them to come back. 38th anniversary of the landing on the moon. We'll have a hotline during open lines later, just for this. I'll tell you why when we come back. Now, the organization is still trying to prove that the Earth is hollow. Dr. Brooks Agnew, our guest, when we come back on Coast to Coast AM. Well, our guest for the rest of the hour, and we'll take some of your phone calls a little bit later on. Dr. Brooks Agnew has a bachelor's degree in chemistry, a master's degree in statistics, a PhD in physics. He was a featured scientist in the 1997 Wendy Robbins documentary on HAARP called Holes in Heaven. And Dr. Agnew has recently co-authored a landmark publication on the creation of the Earth, the Arc of Millions of Years. His website is phoenixsciencefoundation.org, linked up at coasttocoastam.com. And he's back to talk about this expedition. Hey, Brooks, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful, George. It's great to be back.
Good. And I'm going to be with you, by the way, the end of August or so at the Bay Area UFO Expo.
That's right. That's right.
Look forward to meeting you face to face. Well, give us an update on the exploration plans for the Hollow Earth.
Well, we just got back from Tibet. As luck would have it, we had an opportunity to go to Tibet with Maureen St. Germain. It was a small group, and she was going in the back country, which is where we wanted to go. We didn't want to go to the main tourist sites. So March 29th, I joined this small excursion, and we took off. Now, this was not a pleasure trip, but it was absolutely an adventure. When we landed at 11,000 feet in Tibet, it's quite a shock to the biology, to the physiology of a human being.
Oh, yeah.
You walk very slowly because this is the point at which we would normally use oxygen in a small aircraft, but you don't have any such luxury up there, so you really have to take it easy while you acclimate. In fact, we had several of our team that caused us quite a bit of problems with altitude sickness the 19 days we were there. And 11,000 feet was the lowest we were at. We went all the way to 17,500 feet. Anyway, while we're touring the backcountry, all the normal tourist sites that you normally go to, you know that the Chinese have controlled Tibet since 1959. Yes. So they control all the tourist sites, and they charge you for photographs, and they guard all the things that are really valuable. And we had a great Tibetan guide. I can't tell you his name because it would get back to him, and he'd have some problems.
I understand.
His life there. But this Tibetan guide took us to a place in the Potala. Now, the Potala was the world's tallest building until about 100 years ago in Tibet, in Lhasa. So we're walking through this magnificent structure, started in the 7th century and completed in the 17th century. It's kind of added on. But down in the bowels of this building are said to be some very great treasures. So each time we go there, this Tibetan guide asks the Chinese guards if he can go past the locked doors and go down into the lower parts of the Potala. And over the years, they've told him no, all the time. But suddenly, this time, for no reason at all, they said yes. So the Chinese guard opens these double doors that have probably been closed for 40 years. And our group, I can't even tell you how many of us there were, because that would get the guide in trouble as well. We slip past the doors, they lock the doors behind us, and we start down this spiral staircase into this exceedingly dark area. We're just barely able to see our way. We get to the bottom of this spiral staircase, takes several minutes to walk down in there, and you step off the last stair onto a polished stone floor, which contains what we would in modern times call a swastika. But in those days, it is a symbol, a cross, an ancient cross, probably one of the oldest versions of the cross, a symbol of the union of the polarity, just like we had.
True. Until the Nazis screwed up that logo, that symbol, it was just widely used many years ago.
Yes, exactly. And in the middle of this was about a 2-inch turquoise, so it was really neat. So I stood on it, and I turned, and as my eyes adjusted, I could not believe what I was looking at. There in front of me, 20 meters high, out of over 4,000 pounds of gold and covered with over 10,000 jewels, was a Tesla coil.
A Tesla coil. Stay with us, Brooks. More to talk with you about and an update on your Hollow Earth trip. There's some pictures he sent us that are up there at coasttocoastam.com. We'll be right back. Yes, and also with Ian Punnett, because Ian's on Saturday nights beginning at 10 p.m. Pacific time. And who do you have on store for us this weekend,
Well, first,
Ian?
let me just say thanks again for doing that tribute to Art. I think that was really nice of you. Did you have a good time with that?
I did. I had a great time also listening to those old clips because I had not heard all of them over the years, obviously. And it was just neat. It was exciting to hear those things again.
Well, and what was your favorite story you think about Art that you didn't know about before?
All of them.
Well, I won't put you on the spot to choose one, but I enjoyed it.
They're all good.
Doing that.
They're all good.
It's sort of weird that they should both fall on the same night. It wasn't an intention, but tomorrow night we have Deborah Jean Palfrey, the woman who is currently being accused by the government of being a madam. And the woman who had the book that she was attempting to sell that had all the names.
Right.
She's going to be on with us for the first hour.
Well, I know your name and my name, they are not in that book.
It's funny, though, that there were several people who were relatives of mine who passed on years before I was born, and they appear on the list.
Oh, really?
But they had, there's something going on, and she wants to talk about what's really at stake, what's really at work, and she'll do that coming up tomorrow night on Coast to Coast. And then also Colleen Rowley, the FBI agent named as Woman of the Year, considered a hero by many for what she tried to do to stop 9/11. She wants to talk about what we need to do to stop another one, and she's got some secret stories that you'll pass along tomorrow and take your calls on Coast to Coast AM.
That sounds exciting, Ian. And ask her, too, about the search for bin Laden, because I'm hearing from some of my sources that they are getting very close in that Pashtun area near Pakistan, Afghanistan, that they're getting close to Zawahiri, but they think bin Laden may be with him, if he's still alive.
Yes. Good question, and I'll be happy to. That'll be tomorrow.
Okay, thanks. It's Ian Punnett. That'll be Coast to Coast at 10 o'clock. Now, we'll be back in a moment with Brooks Agnew as he talks about updating us on the search for the hole to see if Earth is indeed hollow. And welcome back. We're with Dr. Brooks Agnew. Brooks, a Tesla coil you find?
Yes, and, being the only physicist, at least the only one that would admit to it, in this room, I recognized what I was looking at, and I said, okay, let me count the coils. So I counted the coils, and it matched up. I counted the base of it, and it matched perfectly. And I thought, holy cow, this thing was built in the year 746. How did they know about a Tesla coil, and what does it have to do with Tibetan Buddhism? Well, the Tibetans call this a stupa, and they use it to transport the soul of a Panchen Lama or a Dalai Lama through a four-dimensional stargate.
Amazing.
It's amazing because this thing's painted on the ceiling. I have a picture of it below the two pictures that you have on your website, just so people can get a close-up of it. And for those people that have recently seen the movie The Last Mimsy, these mandalas of these stargates really resonate with people. It's just got a natural resonance, and it's said that if you just keep looking at them and meditating on them, that you'll actually reach enlightenment. This is what the monks do all the time.
Well, what are the possibilities, Brooks, that this search for the hollow earth may be really a dimensional portal?
Well, it gets stronger and stronger. The very symbol of Tibetan Buddhism appears to be a hollow earth. You can see the foliage on the outside, and then there are 7 rays of light, and on the very inside is a yin and yang. So it looks like a hollow earth. And as I went around and used my translator to speak to various monks at different monasteries, each person kind of gave me a piece of the ancient story. It appears that in the 7th century, the King Gampo had conquered 9 nations, one of them being China. Now, we don't know if it was completely by force. Some of it might have been by diplomacy. But instead of enforcing Tibetanism on them, because they didn't even have a written language at the time, he married 9 princesses and had them bring part of their information to him, and he formed Tibetan Buddhism out of whole cloth and the Tibetan written language. In this formation, he links the human being to the inner earth. And the whole religion is an entire male-female relationship that works just like the union of the polarity we outlined in our first book. It could not have been more synergistic with our mission, which is one of the reasons we went there, to Tibet, because the roots of the inner earth story come from nations as old as Tibet. And it is said that Tibet, especially the Himalayas, are the root chakra of the earth. So all of these things tie together and tell a story, and that's why we produced the video, the Inner Earth Expedition Part 1, which is for sale at Amazon and on our website as well. And all of this Tibetan footage, including film from inside this area, is available on that website. And I guarantee this film doesn't exist anywhere in the West.
Now, you were going to be going on an expedition aboard a Russian icebreaker. How's that coming along?
Well, that's coming up next summer. We are chartering the Yamal, which is a nuclear-powered Russian icebreaker. It's the only ship on the planet that can make this trip that's civilian. Military ships can, of course, do it.
Well, the way things are warming up, you might not need it.
Well, actually, as luck would have it, the area we want to go has been locked under ice for about 200,000 years. But due to global warming, we can now get through to this area.
Uh-huh.
Now, some even stranger things happened this last week. I'm walking in the town of Weed, California, because I spoke at a convention there in Weed, California, and will again the week right before the UFO conference in San Francisco, where we're going to be. And on a park bench, there's a box, and it says, "Free books, take one." So I looked in the box, and inside was a 1952 edition of Funk and Wagnall's Encyclopedia, the A volume. So I reached in and opened it up, and I said, hey, let me just look up Arctic. So I looked up Arctic, and I started reading through it. And this is something I actually didn't know. But the person that discovered the magnetic North Pole was Sir James Ross, the Scottish explorer. Happens to be my great-great-grandfather.
The synchronicity's too much here, Brooks. Too much. I love it. Let's take some calls as promised. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Dr. Brooks Agnew. Hi there.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Just wanted to say that I really appreciate everything you're doing and all your research. And quick question, just wanted to know if you have any thoughts or comments on the correlations in Tibetan and Indian cosmology in general, like the Asura demons and the different levels of demonic beings, and some of the correlations with like the inner earth. And you definitely spoke about that a bit, and like the city of Shambhala, and in the Kala Chakra Tantra in particular. And if you have any thoughts maybe on if there are any geographical correlations to the stories of like the Devas and the Asuras, the godlike and demon-like beings, and maybe if you think they're in any positions in particular. I'll take my answer. Sorry about that.
All right. Well, let's see the best you can do on those questions, Bruce.
Well, I think we need to bring him on the expedition with us. It sounds like he's a very good expert in a lot of this Indian and Tibetan lore. Actually, I'm just now learning all of that myself. When I went through Shigatse, there's 108 rooms that actually make up a building that is a mandala, and you walk through these 108 rooms and meditate on exactly what your caller was just talking about. All of these beings that are involved, not only in the creation of planets, and especially the Earth, but the alignment of the Earth with the human soul, and how integral the human soul is with the actual creation of the Earth. So, George, when you asked your question earlier, is the opening into the inner Earth possibly dimensional? We are preparing for that. One of the requirements that we have in putting together our 100-man science team, we're not picking just any 100 scientists. Anybody can do pH measurements or salinity measurements or magnetic measurements on the Earth. These people are going to have to be able to achieve a level of consciousness they're not used to, because it might be a requirement to get this gate to open up.
Fascinating. If you get it to open up, what are you going to do? You going in it?
No, we're not going to go in it. That's part of our charter. we're not going to take a 450-foot-long, 23,000-ton nuclear-powered icebreaker in through a hole into the inner Earth. We're going to wait by the hole, and if we're in the right place at the right time with cameras running, and by the way, we're going to be broadcasting live on the Borderland Network so people can watch this just like a reality show. What we see, they will see. And if something comes up out of the ocean or a hole opens up or the fog parts and we're able to see through into this Shambhala that your caller mentioned, everyone's going to see it with us.
Do you think our governments that have satellite capability are aware that the Earth might be hollow?
Well, funny you should say that, because in February of 2006, our government passed the Data Denial Act, which allows the government to block real-time footage or any feeds from our polar weather satellites above the 60th parallel, and that goes for the south and north poles. Right now, there are no publicly available images of the North Pole anywhere. Now, Google Earth has some animated ones that they say are built from satellites, but those are animated. The feeds above 60 degrees parallel are not real.
Let's go to our first-time caller line. You're up with us on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hello, is it me?
Yes, me. If you are who me is, you are.
Okay.
Welcome, me.
I just want to make a comment with all due respect. I've studied a lot of Tibetan Buddhism and Chinese Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
And Hitler did take the swastika, and he,
Yeah, I think the Tibetans had it first.
Yeah, the Tibetans, that symbol was reversed. And that it's not a cross, it's a symbol for the Milky Way galaxy. It has nothing whatsoever to do with any cross. The first civilization that had a cross-like figure was the Celts.
Actually, it's found in both directions, clockwise and counterclockwise. And since the Earth is not from the Milky Way galaxy, I really don't think it correlates with the Milky Way galaxy.
Well, regardless, what's the point?
Well, I was just curious. That's the first time I heard that it had to do with a cross. When in fact my Lama teachers and other Buddhist teachers, monks, I've always asked them that question. This looks like the swastika symbol, and they said no. It is ancient Buddhism, and it's a pictograph for the Milky Way galaxy. And I thought that was very interesting.
That is interesting, but it predates Buddhism by about 3,000 years.
Next up, east of the Rockies, you're on the air with us. Hi there.
Hello, George. Hello, Brooke. This is Mark from Albuquerque.
Hey, Mark.
Brooke, I met you up at the ECETI conference over the 7th.
Yes, Mark, with your lovely daughter Mariah.
Yes, how are you?
Wonderful.
And George, you had put up one of the pictures. My picture that you put up from there was mine.
Oh, okay, sure.
That I had submitted, and I just wanted to call in because I support Brooke in his mission, having listened to him, and he is going to be successful. And it's part of the awakening process for everybody.
Well, if the hole is there, he'll be successful. If it's not, I don't know what are you going to do about that, Brooks.
Yeah,
well, we'll just film a lot of whales and ice, and we'll sing a lot of kumbayas. But I kind of have the feeling, George, that we were invited.
How will you know you're in it?
Well, that's a good question. Scientifically, what we're going to be doing is searching for what's called the oceanic depression. It's a place where sea level isn't sea level. Many of the Russian mariners report that occasionally it feels like they're sailing a little bit below sea level, which means that there's a gravity anomaly there where the sea actually dips down like a bowl. Now, there's no way to measure this except with a precision gyroscope. So we're going to have one on the ship, and when we go over the edge of this depression, which you won't be able to see from sea level because you only have about 8 miles of perspective due to the curvature of the Earth, but we will start sailing at right angles back and forth across that until we get enough of the circumference that we can calculate the diameter, and then we're going to sail for the center of it.
West of the Rockies, you're up with us on Coast to Coast. Go ahead.
Evening, George.
Hi.
Hey, I really don't mean to throw a damper on the expedition. I think it's an absolutely wonderful thing. And, being a science fiction and fantasy buff, I would think that it would be absolutely wonderful to make such a earth-shattering discovery. But with all respect, are the governments of the earth actually going to allow anything to, if there is anything there, actually to let it be broadcast or let the normal little peons like us know what's going on?
Well, I think, 3 weeks ago, George, that the Russians declared that the Arctic area was theirs? I think they just put their flag on it and decided that they annexed it.
I guess that means the moon is ours.
A very valid point. Governments may prevent civilian access to this area, but since there are 4 polar voyages a year with this same ship, and they just go a different route, I don't think that they even believe we're on the radar, honestly. I don't think anyone's going to try to stop us from doing it. I don't feel anything like that. I don't have any fear of that. Here's the bottom line. We sit in our universities and our labs and we say we know the way the Earth is built. But when we look at the data from satellites, from seismographic data, all kinds of strange sea life that we're netting that we've never seen before, we don't know where this stuff comes from. We don't know why earthquakes reflect the way they do around the inside of our Earth. The pictures don't look right. They have all kinds of dotted lines and recalculations and fudge factors. But when you picture the Earth as hollow, everything fits. Everything works. The bottom line is no one has ever gone. So we're going to mount this expedition. We're just going to go and see for ourselves so we know once and for all.
I bet you would have loved to have talked with Admiral Byrd many years ago.
Boy, I would have loved to have interviewed him.
My gosh. Well, I think he did see something. I don't know what it was, but I do think he saw something.
Well, he only spoke about it orally. He never wrote it down. I don't think that his diary is authentic, but it's an extremely curious legend that is built up around his flight in 1926.
Yeah, you might be right about that. Let's go to one more caller. Brooks, you're on the air with us. Hi there.
Hello.
Yes, take it away.
Yeah, George, pleasure to be on the show. I just have a question for your guest. If and when this opening does open, does he have any concerns that he's not going to have a choice of whether or not he can stay out of it, so to speak, if he's invited into it beyond his will?
Well, I don't feel that either. All of the historians that we have on our crew and the people that have done research about this, there are no reports of whole ships disappearing in this area. Now, there are people getting locked in the ice, and there are people that get lost. There are people that don't find their way and don't find an opening. They get blocked out by fog or by ice or by high winds. But that kind of thing hasn't happened. And if I could tell my whole story, which if you want to know it, you can, of course, watch the DVD that we have out. It's part 1 of this. You'll know that we kind of feel like we're invited, and there are many, many legends and predictions and prophecies that around this time, right before the end times of 2012, a reintroduction of the life that's on the inside of the Earth will be made with the life on the surface of the Earth.
Brooks, I want to thank you for giving us these updates and great pictures that we've got up there on the website that you got to us.
My pleasure, George. Anytime.
All right, and I'll see you at the Bay Area UFO Expo in a few weeks.
That's right.
I've been getting emails over the last day or so that the president has signed another one of those strange executive orders. So I did a little checking, and he did on July 17th. And this one is a weird one. It's an executive order blocking property of certain persons who threaten stabilization efforts in Iraq. Now, when you read some of it makes sense. You want to make sure that people aren't involved in doing, conspiratorial things and terrorist things and stuff like that. That's all well and good. But it's my interpretation, reading this executive order, And this is a strange one. And it's an expansion of other executive orders that he had signed that allows them to take property, bank accounts, everything else from people who protest too loudly about the Iraq War. And I hope I'm misinterpreting this thing, but I don't think I am. And, man, I'm telling you, if that is true, things are truly out of control. I'm going to have to check in with Alex Jones and Jerry Corsi on this executive order that apparently was signed on July 17th. And if you can help me out with this, send me a fast blast or an email. Several months ago, when I was broadcasting out of St. Louis, I got a call from a person who loved broadcasting and loved it so much I made him an offer to just come on in one day on the phone, because he doesn't live here in L.A., and do a little co-host for a segment. And my gosh, he loved it. So I just want you to hear this clip.
Yeah, this is Mike from South Carolina.
Hey, Mike, what's up?
Oh, I got to tell you, I'm a new listener, but I just love your show.
How'd you find us, Mike?
I have a friend of mine in Oklahoma that told me about you.
That's good. Word of mouth. I like that.
Yes, well, I used to be in radio also, but I am no longer on-air reliable, so...
You sound like you used to be at radio, though.
Excuse me?
Give me a little coast-to-coast line or something.
You're listening to Coast to Coast with George Norrie, AM.
Not bad, Mike.
But I want to let you know I do love your show. I'm no longer able to broadcast, but I am trying this internet broadcasting.
Good for you. Now, let me put you on hold.
Yes, sir.
And I'll tell you what we're going to do for a segment one day. I'm going to have my producer, Tom, talk to you, and this is what we're going to do. I'm going to let you co-host a segment with me. You want to do that?
Oh, I would love it.
Okay, and so we're going to let him do this on Monday. I've got Mark Zicree, who will be coming in, and also the Star Trek old superstar, George Takei. Both the George and Mark produced the Star Trek New Voyages.com. It's World Enough in Time, and they're going to have a special screening. They're going to announce a contest, and hopefully you might win it, and they'll fly you up here to watch this. But I'm bringing this Mike guy in, and he's going to interview the two of them with me, and it's a lifelong dream for him, and I'm going to make it come true. Now, we've got open lines for you for the rest of the night, and I'm going to open up a special topic line. Just to those of you who do not believe, this being the 38th anniversary of our moon landing, those of you who do not believe that we landed on the moon, your number is 818-817-0021. That's 818-817-0021. You know, my planned Ouija board show is Wednesday, and I really don't want to take any more calls on whether I should or should not do this. I'm still looking into some things. We've got a number of guests all posted on the coasttocoastam.com website. So tonight, let's restrict your open line calls to your open line calls, less Ouija board questions. Okay, you ready for 3 who know what will happen open lines, and then the special hotline I'll keep open all night long, just to those of you who do not believe that we went to the moon. I believe we did, but if you don't, you tell us why. And that number is 818-817-0021. Let's go to our wild card line, and you get us started on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hi.
Yeah, where are you calling from?
Palmdale, California. My name's Dave.
Hey, David, go ahead.
I'm actually calling in just for the reason you were talking about that wonderful executive order. I was listening to Alex Jones this afternoon, and Ronald Brownstein was on. He was discussing it, how they can freeze anybody's bank account, and it's vague. The actual the writing of it is vague, just like how vague it is for them to implement martial law.
Right, they all are vague, because that way it's difficult to hold up or to argue about.
Exactly. And, that's something that we really, as Americans, need to be focusing on is, you woke me up 3 years ago. Alex Jones woke me up 3 years ago. It's been a rough process, understanding and accepting what we're really going through. And we're in a bad situation right now with them setting all this up.
I mean, the way I look at it, David, did they talk about this on Alex's show, that if you're protesting, theoretically, you're protesting the war and you're very vocal about it. Theoretically, can they get your assets for that?
It's not only that. I mean, they're already trying to set up, the protest zones. They're trying to set that up. But it's not only that. For instance, he brought up the fact that today, if they wanted to, under that new executive order, what Hillary Clinton said about the war, us pulling out, is giving information to our quote unquote enemies, and under that executive order, they can freeze their bank accounts because it's that vague.
My gosh!
And they can and this is something that Alex and his enthusiasm, he was loving it. But not mean that he loves it, but he was just
he likes to jump in it.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, it's not that he likes to jump in it; it's that he's trying to get the word out. The man is doing a wonderful thing.
Oh, I know he is. And I think the world of Alex. But Alex is the kind of guy who reminds me when he was a kid. If there was a little bunch of mud out there, he'd jump right in it and go in the house, and he'd have mud all over him.
You guys, I saw you guys at TalkFest 2007. You guys worked great together. It was hilarious.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, so people are beginning to confirm that my suspicions are correct, that would give them the right to go after protesters. And that's dangerous in this country. We cannot lose those rights. Let's go to our wild card line. You're on the air. Hi there.
Hello?
Yes. Welcome to the show.
This is Conrad Jenkins calling in from Kent, Washington.
Oh, hello there. How are you?
I'd like to talk about a Bigfoot sighting.
Sure. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 13.
13, just like my oldest grandchild.
Yeah, and we were taking a camping trip.
Whereabouts?
In the Olympic National Park.
Okay.
And on the way over there, we went to a small dirt logging road, and we saw Bigfoot.
Now, what do you mean you saw Bigfoot? Come on, what do he look like?
Well, I'm sure he made noises like if you ever seen Star Wars, it sounded like Chewbacca.
Yeah, but now, did you just hear noises, or did you see him?
Well, we saw him through the trees, and he wasn't like any, he didn't look like a gorilla.
Well, describe what he looked like, Conrad.
Well, he did look like a gorilla, but his hair was black, and he stood upright.
How tall was he? What do you think? Was he tall? As tall as your father?
He was about 20 yards away, so I'm guessing he's like 5, 6 feet.
Pretty good size, right?
Yeah.
Now, you're sure he wasn't a gorilla?
Gorillas are black, right?
Well, they're dark, and they kind of hunch over a little bit. They kind of stoop when they walk.
Well, he was like more like a color like Chewbacca. He was almost like an exact thing of Chewbacca, except he didn't have a.
Now, were you did your whole family see this, or just you?
Just me and my father.
All right, so your dad saw this too, and now what happened to this Bigfoot? Did it run away?
Well, we saw him, and we even had the shotgun, but we didn't even think about shooting him.
No, well, that's good.
He was way too far away.
Would you?
But we wouldn't have shot him anyway.
Would you have run if he was coming your way?
We probably would have drove off.
But he was making a noise. Can you make that same noise for us?
Well, just like I said, it's kind of like Chewbacca.
All right. Is your dad close by?
He can't talk right now.
Oh, he can't talk right now. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I do know that we got his permission, or we did get his permission, didn't we, to talk to you?
Yeah.
All right. Well, he can't talk. He doesn't want to come on, does he?
Well, he's actually in the bathroom.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll let him stay in the bathroom. But so that was your episode. No pictures, though, huh?
No, we didn't bring a camera. I don't know why.
So you're a believer that Bigfoot exists?
Well, as you know, the first Bigfoot sighting, those two teenagers or 20-year-olds, I think, in the 60s, who saw him and had a lever-action rifle.
You're good. You study this.
Yeah, well, no, I've just seen a few documentaries on it, but I began to study it ever since I saw him.
All right, you're going to be our honorary Bigfoot hunter, all right? You check in with us when you get these reports. Thanks, Conrad. Let's go to we didn't go to the moon line. You're on Coast to Coast. A non-believer, are you?
All right, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
Well, not too bad. I just had a question. I had read some things a couple of years back. I think they said the Russians had sent up a vessel, I think with some monkeys or other animals in it, and they would always die because of a radiation belt around our atmosphere called the Van Allen belt.
The Van Allen belt, yes.
Where it reflects the sun's energy or something like that, but it's supposedly so strong, no human would be able to make it through that in a vessel. I was wondering if you ever read anything about that.
Well, one of the arguments from those people who say we did not go to the moon is precisely that. They say that the man cannot go through the Van Allen radiation belt and survive, that eventually they would die of the radiation, they would come down with cancer, something would happen to them. Those who believe we went to the moon and those of NASA believe that the spaceship and the astronauts were shielded enough that none of that would have hurt them. Now, I was with Buzz Aldrin last week. He went to the moon. I believe he went to the moon. He looks okay to me.
You do believe him?
Yes. But based on the Van Allen belt, you don't believe we went?
Well, I'm not a strong disbeliever. I was always curious about that. Never spoke to anybody with some real credence to tell me.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's it. And I think they were well shielded to do that. And again, that line, for those of you who do not believe we went to the moon. Let's go west of the Rockies. You're on Coast to Coast. Hello there.
Hi, George.
Hi. Yes.
Hi, this is Mom Heather from Spokane.
Hi, Heather.
Washington.
Sure.
Hello. I actually have something to say about the moon landing, but I called in on this line.
That's all right. Now, when I open up a special hotline, that line is only for whatever the topic is. But if other people want to call the other lines to talk about that topic like you did, that's okay, too.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure that, let's say, a Bigfoot person doesn't come on the moon landing line.
Right. Okay. Well, kind of what I think we did land on the moon, but I don't think the pictures that came from that, they look like they were done in a studio.
And Heather, they may have mixed in some of these simulated pictures with actual pictures. I think that's very possible.
Yeah, and then when you had Richard C. Hoagland, and he saying there's structures on the moon, and and I had listened. I don't know how long ago that was, but then I had always thought those pictures looked too perfect. And we came across some pictures of the moon landing from an estate sale, and they almost look like they were pictures from a negative. But
they had great cameras. They had Hasselblad cameras. They were phenomenal cameras, and they were film cameras.
Yeah.
So they would have negatives.
Well, they're too perfect. And then I've looked in books.
Also, those are expensive cameras.
Yeah, and it just seems like you can imagine where the lighting would be, hidden. It just looks so perfect. And it just seems like there would be, maybe, wouldn't you think there would be a little bit of dust kicking up? I mean, I know there's not much gravity, but wouldn't there be just a little bit of dust?
I don't think so.
Not at all?
No, not when they settled in to get their pictures. I don't think so. You don't think we went?
Well, I do think we have, but for some reason, I'm just not certain the photos we're looking at are the same that they took on the moon.
Well, and again, I'll give you the fact that some of the studio photos, and they had some, may have been mixed in with some of the real ones.
Oh, I see. Okay, so...
And that could explain it.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Heather.
You betcha.
Next up, let's go to our wild card line. Welcome to Coast. You're on the air with us. Hello there.
Hi, is this George?
It sure is.
Hey, George, this is John calling from Saylorsburg. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Calling about the moon landing, actually.
Yes. All right.
I do believe it happened. There's just a few little nagging things that bother me.
Some inconsistencies, John?
Correct.
Like
100%.
what?
Well, the first and main one would be your previous caller had just mentioned about dust being kicked up. And, okay, very little to no atmosphere on the moon. No wind. Now, I know the flag had a piece of wire that went across the top of it to hold it up in place so you see the entire American flag.
Right.
Now, if that were the case, when you watch some of those videos, and maybe one of your subsequent callers can describe what happened here, but it looks like it's billowing in wind.
It does have that wavy look to it.
Exactly, and that's what bothers me about that the most. I believe we were there. I think things were edited. I think a lot of stuff was edited. I think we were being watched, obviously.
Well, one of the things that it's possible, if you believe there are structures on the moon, and if we believe that either past civilizations of man have been to the moon or extraterrestrials, the edited versions I could accept, because there may be things that were on those films that they didn't want us to see.
which would go with the entire cover-up thing, and now you're opening that big Roswell can of worms.
Oh, yes.
It seems to me that it was just funny that certain things were done certain ways back then, and what they can do with CGI now in any movie out there. A lot of it looks like the old style. It's almost like comparing Lucasfilm to Ray Harryhausen.
Don't you think the Russians would have jumped up and down if we hadn't been to the moon and we kept this thing going the way it is? Or some NASA employee would have leaked it?
Yeah, if eventually, I think a lot of people have been threatened over the years, and I think that they basically are just watching out for them and their families.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I know Edgar Mitchell. He was the Apollo 14 astronaut. He went to the moon. And I've got to tell you, when you know someone and trust someone to a point where, you'd put your wallet on the table and you wouldn't worry about it the next day, I feel that way about him. And he has told me personally and on this program that he went to the moon. And I just don't think he's lying about that.
Right. He went to the moon, but what did he say he wouldn't say?
Well, he believes that we've been visited by extraterrestrials. Now, he also said that he didn't see anything unusual on the moon. He didn't see any extraterrestrials or spacecraft, but he does believe that we've been visited, and he says he's been told by others that we have been.
That's an interesting prospect.
Yep, and that's good enough for me.
Absolutely. George, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, let's go next to our wild card line. You're on the air with us. Hi there.
Hello?
Hello? Are you going to talk?
Oh, is this me?
I'm not sure if it's you. Because I don't know who you are. I wish I knew.
It's an extreme pleasure to speak with you.
Who are you?
My name is Cindy. I'm from Dallas, Georgia, northwest of Atlanta. And I've been a listener for a long time since our art first came on.
Good. Thanks for being with us.
Excuse the stuttering. I caught part of the program last night, and I just really enjoyed the clip of the Greys Art's advice for dealing with the Greys.
Oh, yeah, the 10 points. Yeah.
Pretty amazing. Made my night. Tommy, he's very sweet, asked me what my topic was, and I have a million. But let me touch on Harry Potter. I just got back from Wally World here in Dallas, Georgia, where there's just a tower of Harry Potter books.
Oh, my God.
They're buying
them like crazy. I wish mine had gone that way. Oh, well.
I was the only person in the parking lot, and they looked at, and I was speaking with some young people in there, and they looked at me very strangely because, and it's the mentality of my neighborhood, because there are real spells in those Harry Potter books. And I looked at him, I said, well, young man, if you believe that they're real, then is it knowing better than being ignorant? Is it knowledge power? And he said, well, but there are real spells in there, and it's bad. And the mentality was scary, sir. It's kind of freaky.
Why was it scary?
To me, that people are so still so anti. I mean, they want to burn Harry Potter books here and now.
Well, some of them do. Some of them do. That's true, Cindy. That's absolutely true. But it's all an illusion, isn't it? And speaking of illusions, we are 80% on our way to getting Chris Angel on the program. And I'm going to have him make Tommy disappear. We'll be back. And it's time to say hello to all of you listening on your favorite radio stations across North America. And Streamlink members, XM Satellite as well, Channel 165 for you, and then the various chat rooms all over the place. The NighthawkZone.com folks who are having one heck of a moon landing party over there. Imaginative Worlds, the Fantastic Forum Pirates, Above Top Secret.com, the various MySpace chat rooms, Sorcery IRC, that fine National Radio Club, Frog with 2 G's forum, and Into Infinity. And then out there in California, our friends at Appio there in California, Travis, Cisco, Tim, all of them just keep looking to the stores and the stars because something is out there. Back to the phones we go. First-time caller line, you're on the air with us. Hi there.
Hi, George Norrie.
Hello there. Where are you calling from?
Montana.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Darcy.
Darcy, go ahead.
George, I'm just so excited to talk to you. I forgot what I was calling you about.
No. How long have you been on hold?
Kidding you.
You forgot what you were going to call me
I was
about?
originally going to call about what you said not to call about tonight. And then I thought of something else, and I forgot it when the screener answered the phone.
Hold on.
My heart's just pounding. I'm so
Hold on.
excited.
Tommy, first-time caller line, she forgot what she was calling about. Do you remember?
I don't remember, but she waited.
You have no idea?
Something about Martians.
I couldn't.
Something about what?
Remember? But you,
Martians?
I love your show.
Did you call about Martians?
No,
No.
I haven't seen any of those lately around here.
All right. Tommy has no idea.
I
Well,
forgot, but I did just buy your book. I really am enjoying your book. And I buy a lot of the books that people talk about on the air there. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And, every one of them I've thoroughly enjoyed.
well, tell me about you, Darcy. Since you called and you've probably been waiting a while to get in, how long have you been listening to Coast to Coast?
A few years. I'll tell you how I started. I have little dogs. And you know how little dogs yip, yip, yip.
Oh,
yip,
yeah. What kind are they?
I have a Chihuahua, a Pomeranian, and then Chihuahua-Pomeranian crosses.
All right.
But everybody's fixed now, so that's taken care of. But you know how they'll yip at anything, so I would turn on the radio at night so they didn't hear every noise. And I got so sick and tired of the same old stuff, and I would move around, and I found Coast to Coast, and I just love it. Now I lose sleep.
And what about the dogs? Are they a little more relaxed?
They're better. They're better. They don't hear everything as much, but yeah, they're better.
Are they close to you right now? I love animals.
They're in the house because I was afraid they might start yipping.
What do you mean they're in the house? Where are you?
I'm sitting on the back porch.
Oh, just kind of enjoying the summer, huh?
Oh, yeah. It's very, very warm here this summer. Real unusual.
See any shooting stars going by?
I haven't seen any yet.
Nothing, anything
A little bit
strange?
cloudy, but I still see a few.
How about mosquitoes? Are they still out?
They must spray up here some because right where I live, they're not too awfully bad. But I've been, to Minnesota. I have relatives there, and they're nothing like they are back there in Minnesota.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't think there's many as there used to be. They're going somewhere, too, like the honeybees.
You know what? I've lived in this house where I am for 20 years, and, honeybees, I used to have wasps yearly. Maybe see one honeybee a year. This year, I have tons of honeybees, tons of them, like I've never had before, ever here.
You ever have a wasp in the house?
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely allergic to them. Oh, yeah, I have raid.
How do they get in?
I have no idea.
Fireplace?
Huh?
Maybe down the fireplace, but there should be a screen up there.
Well, you would hope, but I've never got up there.
All right, Darcy, you do know the minute you hang up, you're going to remember why you called.
Maybe.
All right. See you, Darcy.
You.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too. Next up, let's go to we didn't go to the moon line. You're on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Oh, George, it's Ron over, originally from the Show Me State, and that's what I'm saying is that you got to show me the moon.
Show you the moon.
I can't believe that we don't have a telescope that I could just go look at and see the lunar Apollo 11 lander there sitting on the moon. And some people say, the hell, the moon's too bright because of the reflection of the sun. But, they take pictures of the solar spots all the time. And I guess anyone in high school astronomy will tell you that all you got to do is put a filter on your telescope. But I just can't believe with Google Earth and satellites that take pictures of license plates that we can't just take a picture of the lunar site and just open it up to the public as a tourist attraction. Take a look at the lunar lander.
I'd love to see that, too. Well, they're not aimed that way, unfortunately. But
of course not aimed that way because we weren't there. How long did the government cover up the Roswell thing before they changed the story 3 or 4 times?
But you really don't think we went, huh?
You got to show me, George. You know that. The Show Me State.
Well, yeah, but I was from Detroit, actually. Then I inherited the Show Me State. But I'm a believer.
Okay, but you would believe more if you saw it, wouldn't you?
Well, I don't know how much more I could believe, but you would believe if you saw it.
Absolutely. And one more thing I wanted to know from you was something about the moon ringing like a bell. What was that about? Who rang it?
They would jettison parts of the LEM and down to the moon. And then they were looking for basically seismic readings. And on one episode, it pinged, which was very unusual.
Couldn't your last guest do the same thing for his project? Because I think the Earth is hollow, too, because there's no other explanation for, all the tectonic plate movements.
That's a good point. Good point. All right, thanks, Ron.
All right, yeah, we'll catch you later.
Okay, so he doesn't believe. He doesn't believe we went to the moon. Let's go to our wild card line. You're up with us. Hi there.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
How are you doing tonight, George?
Doing great. Thank you.
I just wanted to talk to you. I'm calling from Palm Springs, California.
Okay, what's your first name?
My name is Travis.
All right, Travis. Not Travis Walton by any chance, is it?
Hey. I just wanted to talk to you about an experience I had a few months ago.
What happened?
That was really interesting. I take walks a lot around 9 or 10 o'clock at night, especially when I walk my dogs. And I live in an area where there's a lot of really straight and long streets with street lights up and down. And I was walking my dog one night around 9 o'clock, and up ahead of me about 300 or 400 yards, there was a jogger. And at first I was a little alarmed because I don't usually see too many people at night, especially in the area that I live.
Was he jogging towards you or away from you?
He was jogging towards me.
Okay.
So I got a little nervous at first. He was jogging pretty fast. And he was in the darkness, but I could still see him.
And you could hear his feet, right?
Huh?
You could hear his feet on the old pavement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was on pavement. And he ran into the street light. And just as he was leaving the street light, completely vanished.
What do you mean he vanished?
Just gone.
How close was he to you by that time?
He must have been, I'd say, less than 100 yards. He was getting really close, and he ran into the street light, and I could see him totally. And just as he was leaving the street light, just gone. And
Are you sure he didn't just turn off and he went into some house or something like that?
That's what I was thinking. But when I went to the area where he vanished, there was nowhere where he could have gone. There was nowhere.
Where'd he go, Travis?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. It was really strange because I almost couldn't believe my eyes. Like,
a jogger who simply disappeared. He vanished. Maybe he went into the other dimension.
It was, I have no way to describe it at all.
That is, how about the dog? Did he sense this?
Not really, actually. I mean, my dog is old. It's pretty calm. I was just out doing my normal thing, and to see a jogger, I mean, it's not really, it's not that.
When he was jogging, even though you lost him, do you think that he continued jogging? He didn't come into the light and stop, did he?
No. He was jogging pretty fast.
But you could hear him jogging, right?
I couldn't hear him jogging, no.
You could not, okay, because that would have been interesting to see if you could still hear him jogging, even though he might have gone.
Yeah, he was a good probably 50 yards in front of me, but, I mean, I live in the desert, and the houses are pretty spread out on this street, and there's nowhere where he could have gone. I mean, I was at the area where he disappeared within, less than a minute after he disappeared, and there was nowhere he could have ran into because he literally vanished in front of my eyes. He was just gone.
Travis, all I can say is either he went into a home and you didn't see him, like you said, though, there was no reason why he would. You couldn't find anything there. Or he went into another dimension. That is another one of these strange calls. First-time caller line, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, this is Diana.
Hi, and where might you be, Diana?
In Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland.
Yes.
Meat town,
George,
Cleveland.
I'm glad to speak with you. And I have a funny story to celebrate the moon landing.
A funny story, okay.
Yeah. I remember as a young child sitting in the living room and watching it on black and white TV and block printing the events on grade school lined paper. I was enthralled, and I believe it happened. So all these years later, I have a son. And back when he was about 4.5, there was a decade celebration. Must have been, a couple years ago. Maybe last decade. And to bring that event to life for him, we sat for a few hours in front of the computer and listened to the moon landing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we were going to put on a play. The set was just our living room floor and an overturned laundry basket. That was his space capsule. I was mission control. And he practiced the line, "This is one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind."
And he's in the laundry basket.
Yeah, he practiced and practiced. And then it was time to put on the show. I was mission control, announced that he had landed, and the laundry basket, he was crouched under the laundry basket. He stood up, the laundry basket toppled aside, and he had his one moment, his one line. "This is one small step for man," he said, and thought, "and one giant leap for kind of man." And I thought, George, that there is no better time or place to tell this story than right here after you had Buzz Aldrin.
How cute. How cute.
Yeah.
Nothing like little kids, huh?
Nothing like it. Nothing like little kids. But thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it brings you a chuckle.
It has brought us all a chuckle. Let's go to our West of the Rockies line. Welcome to the program. Hi there.
Good evening, George.
Hey.
Brian from Yakima, Washington.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, I just don't think it was possible to land on the moon, like technologically, and get back. I mean, we're so challenged today just to get the space shuttle up and down safely.
Well, I'll tell you the weird thing, and again, you know I'm a believer. The weird thing for me is it's going to take so darn long to get back. I mean, with that kind of 1960th technology,
well,
it is weird. I'll give you that.
Well, you think Jesse James on Monster Garage would have been to the moon and back by now, you know?
They say that the PC you have at home has got more power than what they had there.
Yeah, and then you think about batteries and, you know, all that good stuff and all the mechanical equipment they had. That stuff fails right here in good conditions, you know?
Well, but you know what? I have seen one of the, LEMs when I went to the Smithsonian a long time ago.
Yeah, I've seen it too. Yeah.
And it is a heap of machinery. I mean, it's not really, I mean, when you look inside of it, it does amaze you that they were able to land on the moon with that thing.
Yeah, it doesn't seem possible when you look at it. And same thing with the suits, too, the flight suits.
But, you know, when you hear that story that Buzz Aldrin told us at the top of the hour where he had to use his pen to kind of jumpstart the circuitry, you know, that tells you that they didn't have the greatest stuff then.
Yeah, that's kind of, you know, when you listen to those guys, you can't really think that they made it up, you know, but it's tough to believe.
Yeah, no, but I do believe we went. I believe these guys.
I kind of think we went and circled it and, you know, and then came back. I can't believe that we put feet on the ground and got up again.
And we went many times.
Yeah.
So you're going to go to your grave not believing we went, huh?
Well, not like, you know, the last caller, they show me a picture of it, you know, up there, and we can look at it, you know, through a telescope or something.
I think they went and saw these old pictures when they went there. I think we've been there before. A long time ago.
That's possible.
Okay, thanks for the call.
Thanks, George. Have a good one.
You too. Next up, east of the Rockies, it's your turn. Hi there.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Take it away.
Yes, I about your last guest, something I noticed about a sub that went up there one time. It had a device on it that I noticed looked just like something from out of Ed Lee Scallion's Coral Castle.
Really?
Yeah, they went up there and then they had problems. They lost their the top, you know, where the top deck of the sub.
Yeah.
I think it was a Nautilus or something like that. And they barely made it back alive.
When was this?
It was either back in the 40s or the 50s.
Okay.
One of our first nuclear subs went up there. And I noticed there was a piece of equipment there, and I just happened to notice because I saw that tape of Ed Lee Scallion's device. Then I saw that like within an hour, and it was the same piece of equipment.
Huh.
It was like, I swear, just like they took it out of the building and put it in.
Well, I think it would have had to have been, when did we get our first nuclear sub?
I'm thinking the 50s, but it was one of the first ones. It might have been the Nautilus. It's one of those that went up there. They actually said that they were doing gravity testing as one of their mission parameters.
I think the Scorpion was our second one.
Yeah.
And let me see. I'm going to get the year because, this will drive me crazy until I can figure this out.
I knew it. I was going to call you a long time ago and mention that to you, and I just totally forgot about it. I just happened to think about it now.
Let's see. Was it the Polaris?
I'm not sure. It might have been. It was one of the first ones we had.
Well, I'll find it.
And it was like an expedition up there.
It was the Nautilus, 1954.
Yeah. And I forget what they call the tower, but they lost the tower on the way up there, and then supposedly they lost their steering, and they couldn't make it back. They barely made it back.
Neil, Mike, and I decided that being so privileged to be on that first landing that we just would forego the opportunity to stay in the crew rotation cycle, and we'd move on to other things. And we all did that so that other people could have their chance to get to the moon. Neil went into aeronautics at NASA headquarters. Mike worked for the State Department for a while. I had hoped that my return to the Air Force, the first astronaut to do so, would be as an assignment commandant of cadets at the Air Force Academy. That's kind of an assignment that would allow me to ease back into the service after being away for 11 years out of 20 years. But that wasn't to be. They asked me to command the test pilot school, which was unusual because not only had I been away from the service for a good while, but I'd never had any test pilot training. I eased my way into the astronaut program by the academic achievements at MIT.
Buzz, I was reading in a documentary that you're going to be in that it was pretty touch and go trying to take off from the surface of the moon. There was some kind of broken circuit breaker, and you had to use a pen in order to really punch it and ignite the LEM. Is that what happened?
Well, we have rows and rows of circuit breakers, and we use them to protect a circuit from being electrified early when it wasn't really needed. So we sort of have a double protection. Most aircraft do that. If we're not using something, let's say you're flying cross-country in a fighter airplane and you're not going to be using the guns or rockets, you pull the circuit breakers on that so that just in case, something might jam or might fire if you happen to have ammunition aboard. So a lot of circuit breakers were pulled, and evidently when Neil and I got back in again and then sort of moving around coming up with childlike answers, and then right near the end, one of those girls who was asked questions turns out to be the base commander of a rather extensive base on the moon. Now, that's, I think, really a wonderful setting for an outstanding portrayal of the achievements of getting there on the moon. I just feel that that's outstanding. I'm not sure that it reflects the reality of an expanding human base. My vote would be that we would have an expanding colony on the surface of Mars for a number of reasons. It's much more habitable there. The resources that are there at Mars are much more capable of supporting sustained human activities. It takes a long time to get to Mars, and you need to gradually build up. You can't bring everybody back on a return trip, so other people have to stay there. I just vote for a growing habitation on Mars, and I think we really have to commit to that before we start spending a lot of money directed toward specifically Mars. I think we're doing the absolute right thing now in setting our objectives as as Kennedy did back in 1961. Really, it was the first time he said, we're going to go to the moon. That was May 25th. Yuri Gagarin had flown once around the Earth,
right,
and Alan Shepard had gone up and down, just 15 minutes in flight. So to look back on those historic times is really quite a privilege for all of us. 12 walked on the moon, and 9 of us are still alive. And I'm trying to bring those people together in Apollo Lunar Ambassador reunions.
Oh, that would be a great reunion. I've got to tell you, are you disappointed that we stopped going to the moon and the program just seemed to end?
Well, my participation in it ended. All 3 of us...
Leaders. President Bush will undergo a routine colonoscopy Saturday and temporarily will hand presidential powers over to Vice President Dick Cheney. Mr. Bush will have the procedure done at his Camp David, Maryland retreat. Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin, and 3 of its executives have been ordered to pay a $634.5 million fine for misleading the public about the painkiller's risk of addiction. A U.S. district judge levied the fine, saying that, well, they should have been able to tell people about this. The hearing included statements by numerous people who said their lives were changed forever by the addiction to this drug. On July 20th, 1969, the human race accomplished its single greatest technological achievement of all time when a human first set foot on another celestial body.
Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Ah, yes, the voice of Neil Armstrong. I was 19 years old when I saw that, heard that. I'll never forget it. I had a great opportunity to meet Buzz Aldrin during our Larry King interview last week. That was quite a thing. And several months ago, I had an opportunity to interview Buzz Aldrin here on Coast to Coast. And we just talked with him about some of the events on the moon landing, what he had to do to help get that lunar module back up. You have to play with a pen. That's right, a writing pen in order to kind of circuit something to get it going. Well, here's our discussion with Buzz. Buzz, it is a delight having you on the program, sir. How are you?
I'm very fine here in the southern coast of France and Saint-Tropez. It's just beautiful here.
I had heard that you got the name Buzz because your sister couldn't pronounce brother when you were a kid. Is that true?
That's the way I understand it. That's the way they keep telling it to me, yeah.
And then you legally changed your name to Buzz, right?
That's correct. I guess maybe 20.
From the City of Angels off the Pacific Ocean, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie, and let's take a ride and go coast to coast AM. Open lines later tonight. Yep, those Friday into Saturday morning open lines. I'll open up a special hotline. I'll tell you all about that later on. Well, those who are living around San Francisco had a little jolt this morning. A light earthquake. Breaking glass, jarring nerves, no injuries, thank God, reported. The 4.2 magnitude earthquake struck about 4:40 in the morning, about 2 miles east of Oakland, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The tremor was felt on both sides of the San Francisco Bay. Lasted up to 10 seconds. Residents east of San Francisco were shaken awake as pictures slipped from walls and objects, and some businesses delayed opening because of broken windows. Power out to about 1,000 customers. I still continue to get emails from people who claim to be psychic, who think that the big one is coming in the Southern California area. I hope they're wrong. Well, federal investigators kind of scratching their heads tonight, examining what appears to be an inoperative military rocket launcher, a tube, found Friday morning on the front lawn of a Jersey City home that sits directly in the flight path of the busy Newark Liberty International Airport. Jersey City police removed the tube And the incident is now being investigated, of course, by the Joint Terrorism Task Force and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. There was no evidence of any explosive device discovered at the scene. And a Patriot surface-to-air missile has been found in a Florida scrapyard. Workers at the yard in Tampa called police to say they found a torpedo. Experts were drafted in from the nearby MacDill Air Force Base, who quickly identified the object as a Patriot. They said it was harmless, it was missing its warhead. President Bush has signed an executive order prohibiting cruel treatment, including humiliation or degradation of the religious beliefs in the detention and interrogation of terrorism suspects. The White House declined to say whether the CIA currently has a detention and interrogation program, but said if it did, it must adhere to the guidelines outlined in the executive order. The order targets captured al-Qaeda terrorists who have information on attack plans or the whereabouts of the group's senior leader.
20 years ago, probably, but it takes time to catch up to all you journalists.
Buzz, I've got to ask you, whenever you look up at a full moon, do you sometimes pinch yourself and say, I was there? I mean, what's the feeling like?
Well, I guess I coined the phrase afterward that before we went there, it was a stranger, but it's a friend now. That's kind of it's manufactured after the fact, and that really doesn't mean a whole lot. It's not too habitable a spot either. It's going to be difficult for people to go and live there for a long period of time. And I understand all these technical things about it, but I guess I'm still enthused whenever I look up there and realize that, by golly, I have actually been to that place. Now, it's not as clear as it used to be. I have a little astigmatism. But, we all have to live with growing a little bit older and having a few aches and pains and popping a few more pills than maybe we used to. But it's really amazing that there's still 18 of us still alive of the 24 people who reached the moon in support of those 6 landings.
And all heroes. When you were on the moon with Neil and you two were bouncing around there, I mean, it had to have been such an incredible feeling. You're looking at planet Earth. You're on the moon, desolate. I mean, what kind of a feeling was there, Buzz?
Well, you got one of the 2 words. I just put 2 words together that seem to describe the event to me: magnificent desolation. And Tom Hanks has used those words now in his latest 3D IMAX portrayal of the 6 missions that went to the moon, and what the guys did, and he put it in a perspective of young kids kind of asking a few questions and being asked questions